Okay, we'll reconvene the November 19th meeting of the District 9 Board of Education. We've been in closed session discussing various matters as allowed by statute. At this time, we will rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up on our agenda, approval of minutes, October 1st, special workshop meeting, October 15th, business meeting, October 15th, closed meeting, and November 5th, special workshop meeting. Any comments, corrections, clarifications to the minutes? If there are none, the chair will invite a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Member Havasich moves.
Second.
Member Beckman seconds. Call the vote, please.
Excuse me, Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka. Aye. Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. Item 5 on the agenda, first reception of visitors. If there's anybody in the audience wishes to address the board, usually on a matter, an action item for this evening, you come forward to the microphone, state your name and address. Give a few seconds here so everybody doesn't rush. Okay, it looks like there won't be anybody who wishes to speak during the first reception. We'll close that agenda item. Move on to item number 6, recommendations, reports to the superintendent. 6A, the 2013-2014 Capital Improvement Plan. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. It's customary in the fall of the year for the administration to make a report to the Board of Education about capital projects that we will recommend for the 2013-14 school year. We do it at this time of year, most importantly, to take advantage of the summer construction season when we are doing work on the buildings that is much better done when students and teachers aren't there. Tonight, we have a report. Mr. Schock, who has done this for many, many years, is on vacation. And so the guys that are going to follow Mr. Schock next year have their first time at bat in the big leagues. They are making a report about the 2013-14 Capital Improvement Plan, and we're going to watch and evaluate them closely.
No pressure. Any pressure?
You can leave at any moment, guys.
None? Okay.
A lot.
It's on TV too, guys.
Yeah. And only 30 million people can watch you.
Except for 10 minutes, the Bears will be on. And
Tuning to another one. Okay. Thank you, Dr. McDonald. I'm here tonight to present to you our prioritized list of projects for the 2013-2014 O&M Capital Project Plan. As it's been in the past, this is not an action item tonight. We'll come back to you later with the larger projects we publicly bid out for approval. I'd like to go over the process of how we comprise this list. We start with the two administrations, North and South. They prepare a list of projects from each school and prioritize them. Many of these projects already exist in our long-range capital plan for the schools, and others are new items that come up throughout the school year. District administration then meets with the schools and reviews these requests. Then the district administration meets again and prepares a final draft of the combined schools list as a guideline for our prioritization of these categories. We look at safety, security, maintenance, program, and aesthetics. Lastly, we have one final meeting that we go over with the entire group. The list that is on the screen in front of you is our prioritized projects for North, South, and the ASC. I will go through the list. Feel free to ask questions if we have them. I will speak briefly and only highlight items where I feel there is a need to. The first 6 items, large RMS, annual bleacher inspections, FF&E, and turf repairs are annual items. I want to make a note on a couple of them. Large RMS, repair and maintenance for asphalt, things of that nature. Annual bleacher inspection and repairs, something we have to do each year. FF&E is furniture, fixture, and equipment for the schools. And lastly, the turf repairs. Now, last year we were at a $30,000 and a $20,000 30,000 at south and 20,000 at north, and we've reduced those. So south has gone down $10,000, and north has gone down 13. Obviously, with the turf, we have some less needed grass areas to fix.
Oh, that's more grass rather than any repairs that need to be done on the artificial turf?
Yeah, Terry, those would be for Legion Field at north
Oh.
and the new softball field, the varsity field, so we'd have to keep that up, and that's the grass.
Oh, okay.
It can't include any O&L part of the grounds of the facilities.
And how are those holding up? Are they holding up pretty well, the turf?
New turf, sure.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Outside of grooming, no rips. Outside of grooming, we haven't really done a lot of maintenance on it.
Okay.
It's been fantastic. And obviously, at North, the new one just was completed, so but we're seeing not much maintenance care at this time.
Good, great.
Wonderful. I think
Good.
we've been careful, too.
Do you
I mean,
anticipate,
what to do with fields,
what is the
stuff like
life of it? 15 years?
That's what they were saying.
So,
It's
It-
subjective to how much use it gets.
Right.
mhm,
Okay, but yeah, we can see 15 years out of the fields we have.
okay, all right.
We're hoping at least 10. I think it'll be
I'd like
more.
to see 20.
Yeah, I'd like to see 22. But they're used consistently, and really in the first year, just looking at it, there's not a lot of wear and tear on it at all.
Good, good, very good. I think we got a good quality product, so hopefully that'll last us a while.
Okay, the next line items at North, it's the natatorium or pool. The Dectrons, which are dehumidification units. At North, the coil is deteriorating, so we need to replace it. Next line item is South High School, the wrestling balcony. This has some asbestos tile and floor tile that's up in the balcony, and it's at the end of its cycle and needs to be removed.
And the plan is just to seal the concrete after you pull it up?
That's correct. No plans to put anything else but keeping the concrete on it. The next one we're really excited about, it's the lighting projects at North and South. Currently, our light fixtures are mercury vapor in the two school gymnasiums. And these fixtures, what we're running into is the ballasts are no longer being made and are available to us. And very soon, the actual bulbs won't be available.
Wow.
So we kind of accelerated this project. It's been on our radar for a few years now. So we're looking to replace them with LED lighting.
Right.
So we're thinking energy conservation project and a minimal year payback. Lisa McCartney is currently working, she's our energy guru in our energy committee, filing for GCEO grants.
Okay, better.
And we're thinking we might get some funds back from this project. So we're real excited about it. One last thing, we do have 2 other small gyms in some other areas, so we might be coming back in the next couple of years with changing out some other fixtures that are mercury vapors to LED.
That's great, great, very exciting.
Next line item is North diving boards. These are our competition boards, our 5 meters. There's 2 at North. They're worn and unsafe, so we just want to replace the boards. At North, the loading dock roof, it's leaking and has wet insulation underneath it. It's over 25 years old, so we need to do a full replacement. The air handlers at North High School, they're the originals, 1958.
Oh, my gosh.
There's 4 of them. The parts are becoming obsolete. They're inefficient, so we're looking to replace those, get better air quality in the gym, specifically for major events when we pack the gymnasium. 2 South roof drains. This was a deferred project the last 2 years because of higher priority items, so it's back on the list, and we're looking to get that done this year. The driver's ed car is a 1996 driver's ed car. We have an over-the-road plan that generally replaces vehicles at 10 years old or 100,000 miles. This vehicle is 17 years old and 130,000 miles.
Right.
Very
See,
well kept
the
up.
kids
It's
that are
still in great
driving
shape.
it.
So we're looking to replace this, but keep the 96 vehicle in the fleet to possibly use for the transition house.
Oh,
That's
I was
good.
going to ask how that.
It's in great shape.
worked.
Yeah, it should be in
Because
good shape.
You
can
sell
use-
it, there's a,
no value, really.
well, no, if it's still running in good shape, something can be something for it.
We still haven't been able to get more than like $3,000 for cars that old, so.
Yeah.
We don't get much on the buyback.
Yeah, it's not, so we decided it'd be worth to hold on to this car. And
Sure, if it's
They'll
still,
need it for a little bit of driving, just, they do such short distances with the
yeah.
transition program.
Just curious,
You'd
though,
be
do
better off keeping
those dollars, if we were to sell a car, what budget do they come back into?
We go back into the cost of the line item. So if we budget, when I actually set up the budget, there's the $22,000. If we were going to turn it in, we would put 19,000, because we would assume 3,000 trade-in or something. Whatever the value is of we net it to that line.
Okay, next line item, North High School resurfaced main gym floor. It's the competition floor. Surface is peeling. It's been 25 years since the last time that it's been done. This would also include relining the main gym, so kind of excited about this one with the new lighting, be able to show off that new floor.
Wow.
Hey, Jim.
It'll look like a shiny new quarter.
South High School, library carpet replacement and reconfiguration of circulation desk. The carpet is old, worn and ripped, and with the reconfiguration of the circulation desk, they're looking to expand some student capacity in the library, so around 40 more students to get in the library area. South High School reconstruct north parking lot. Per our maintenance program, we feel this lot is at a point where it needs to be resurfaced to protect the subbase from deterioration. So it's just a good time to do it before we really lose the subbase.
That's asphalt paving?
And that would be asphalt.
Do we look at any other options on that, or no?
We have not at this point.
That's the lot that's just immediately south of the tennis courts.
They're by the loading docks.
Oh, back there?
Smaller
Yeah, it's
lot.
kind of the back
Small
end of
one.
it.
Right.
Yeah, It's the south campus northernmost
Yeah, it
lot,
was a little confusing.
the north end of the
But
building.
the idea is just to replace paving in kind, not to expand in any way?
No,
You-
no
There's nowhere to
expansion.
go.
And the only change would be to add a concrete pad. There's an existing concrete pad in front of the loading dock itself, where
Right.
the trucks back in
Yep.
and sit. So we would extend that out just enough to take the whole truck in. And
Okay.
South High School replaced window treatments. This is as needed in classrooms and other areas in the building. South High School replaced carpet in identified rooms as needed for worn and ripped carpets. South High School expand exterior door card system. This is for various doors. One is east entrance of the campus. After building the parking lot 12, 13 years ago, these doors are now an entranceway, and they need door card access. So they're adding that to it. South High School replaced resilient floor in small gym. It's 22 years old and worn.
Now, that's one there, kind of going back to the asbestos abatement issue on the others. I mean, this is actually just vinyl tile, but is it necessary to replace the tile, or would just a sealed concrete work here, as it seems
no,
to be?
that's a playing surface.
Okay.
And that the athletes play on, and the floor is a resilient piece to it, and it's much better for traction, and
Mhm.
it has it will have the lines superimposed over the top, and
So would it be an actual tile, or will it be?
no, it's what's on there now is it's rolled goods. It's sheet goods basically that was on, and seams were bonded together.
I see.
And, that surface is worn to the point where it's slippery now. The lines are disappearing, and the maintenance on it is pretty hard to do. And so we're at a point where it needs to be replaced. And athletic surfaces are such that they give you better grip, traction plus.
Right. So So then back to the issue at North, going to the concrete, and that was in the.
That's at South and Wrestling.
Oh, so that's just the wrestling pad.
That floor is 95% of the time is covered with wrestling mats.
Very good.
Yeah.
So that's why we wouldn't need any
Right,
resilience.
it doesn't make sense to spend the extra
Very good.
money.
Had to ask. Thanks.
That's okay.
South High School painting the auditorium. It's been over 30 years since last painted, peeling and chipping, specifically the ceiling.
We've had some good paint.
Good everything.
Touched up and well maintained.
30 years out of a coat of paint. South High School Stadium Field constructs storage building. This is the southeast corner. It replaces the storeroom that was lost in the master site plan changes because the space was kind of converted to other uses. So bringing a little area back there for storage. South Main Gym replaced small lockers. These are the 1963 original lockers, and parts are now becoming unavailable. Also, this locker room is no longer used for physical education, it's used for athletics, and what they're finding out is the lockers aren't big enough to store their stuff in the lockers.
So the only question I have on this is just, it's okay to lose lockers then, because we'll have fewer lockers after making this change. Correct, taking smaller ones and going to larger ones, or is there the room in place?
There'll be plenty of lockers for the athletes when we're finished.
So there's more lockers, right now, there's more small lockers really than what's needed.
Right, right. The way they're set up now is you have, every period has to have a small locker for the kids. So that's, a day's worth of lockers in there. Now we're talking about a team's worth.
One of our concerns is that we seem to have a lot of thefts out of that locker room because the lockers are so small the students can't put all their belongings in them. And one of the reasons this rose to the list was just the fact that larger lockers will enable the students to put all of their belongings, and that should eradicate the theft issue.
I've heard firsthand about the small lockers. I think this is a good move.
I remember the small locker.
Great.
Okay. And lastly, South High School CCTV expansion. This is deferred from last year. We're adding cameras to South to be equal to where North is in regards to coverage. So we'll get them to the same coverage as North with this added
North actually had more.
expansion. Okay, that's the list.
Any other
Have any
questions?
questions?
Let me pick up, well, if you have about a specific item, go ahead, but I have something to tag on as we go through the financial side of this.
I was interrupting as we went along, so
I'm sorry.
I'm all set now.
We're good.
Anyone else?
My little 2 cents here is that you notice that the dollar amount is 1.7 million. Our projection has always used 1.5 million. We've been ramping it up. It used to be as low as 900,000 or $1 million a year, and we've been pushing it up each year. Our projection, given last August, would have said that we would use 1.5 million. But there was also the issue last year that came up towards the end of the year, and we put it into the budget for some plumbing renovations at the North Campus that were just about $780,000, and caused us to, at least for the operating funds, since we're funding this all from operating dollars, come up with a $400,000 budgeted loss for this year, if you will, or use of reserves this year. And the intent is, or the belief is, that if we needed to, we would reduce this list actually this year to kind of, because we moved up that big project from this year or even next year to the current year. So we think this is an aggressive list, but I'm very comfortable letting us go forward with this list at this point. What we do is there will be, I think, 6 or 8 items that are going to be put out to bid. They're large items that would be best served having bids put out on them. We still don't know what's going to go on with pensions, but we will by the time we pass the budget. And by the time we need to make a decision and bring these to the board, we would know whether or not the budget we think could support all of $1.7 million. We started with a list of 1.5 million, and then you look at the lockers was an item, you can see there it's about $200,000, and we felt strongly with putting it on the list and trying to get it done this year, in part because as Jim had mentioned that there's a couple items that he felt excited about. The main gym lighting, that has a 3-year payback. And so
Wow.
that's $70,000 a year. And so that credit is not reflected in these numbers. So I think when we really work through the budget and then work through the utility budget, we'll be able to reduce that, and there'll be some room. Plus, to the credit of these two guys, they're going to be trying to pick up for Marty Schock without replacing an administrator. And so there'll also be some other dollars in the budget there that we feel we could put right back into the capital budget. That's where these guys work and know the buildings, and these are things that we'd like to go forward with. And actually, my belief is that what I think everybody keeps chatting up on the pension reform is that it'll be phased in. And I think if it's phased in, I think we should take care of some of these big items as soon as we can and keep knocking them off the list rather than build the reserves. I'd rather, we actually did project a surplus for next year, even though we had a $400,000 loss this year. We have a surplus that's relatively small, but a surplus for next year. So I'd rather we go after those capital projects and continue to go after them until we can't, because the budget, the pension piece maybe catch us up to us. But I'd like to get as many things off this list as we can. So that's why you see 1.7 million as opposed to 1.5 million. We felt strongly about the $190,000 project. That's one that's does cause the administration some headaches with, student thefts and things like that, and it's something that we'd like to do. And we're going to be aggressively going after this list.
If we have to cut, is it from the bottom?
In terms, it is in priority order, and so that was the, it's another, it's not anchored in, but it's in pretty good priority shape there. If we, depending on the amount of reduction, if we had to make a serious reduction, it might change, but when you really know the number that you have to work with, sometimes you need to take a look at it and say what, there might be a change of mind, but right now that's in priority order.
Okay.
And sometimes this happens, even though we think those numbers are pretty strong, pretty good, that we'll get something will come in at double
Sometimes.
projected, and we'll just take it off the list then too. We've done that before.
Right.
If it's less,
If it's less, we save money.
Right.
and do more.
And there is contingency built into those particular items that are involving construction or a good amount of labor or that would be subject to a general contractor. Some of these items are pretty, like the driver's ed car, we know pretty much what the state bid is on cars. So there's no contingency really there. But some of the larger items do have contingency, which could also help us shrink the list, get everything on the list done, but the cost being less than that.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just a quick comment for clarity. Understanding is people look at this list, for instance, when we say replace small lockers with larger athletic style lockers, $190,000, that cost involves more things other than just the cost of the lockers themselves, and which they're not in their heads, yes, but I was stating as a rhetorical sort of statement so that people understand that these costs are, when you're replacing 4 air handlers, it's not just the cost of the equipment, but other things that happen as a result of doing that work that has to be done as well. So these are very brief descriptions of some
larger
very
projects,
larger projects. So because there's some big numbers associated with this, and some people might look at it and go, well, wow, how could lockers cost that much? And so I wanted to put that out there so people understood.
Okay, does that cover it, everybody? Everybody okay? Okay, we'll move on then to 6B, Strategic Plan 2013 District Goals Report. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. As the board is aware, our policy is that the administration will give the board quarterly updates about the progress on our annual district goals, which are based on the strategic plan. And it is my intent to do that this evening, although I do intend to be brief. I will not cover every single area, as I don't want us to be here until after the Bears game's over. So. But as you can see from your materials, there are some areas where has been substantial work, and there's some areas where there's not been a report, and that's entirely appropriate because this is really represents 2 months worth of work on something that's supposed to take all year. Additionally, the board has had and will have, continue to have, reports about different facets of this plan. I will mention those as I briefly review this. There are 7 different areas in our strategic plan and goals, and the first is curriculum instruction assessment. And here, I just want to talk about something that you'll be seeing shortly, new course proposals about Common Core mathematics, and also new course proposals about honors and weighted courses, because we are, of course, pushing our students to get involved in those demanding courses to prepare them to go to college. We'll also say that we have different groups of department heads and teachers working on different facets of Common Core curriculum. For example, social studies and English teachers are working on integrating parts of the language arts curriculum into social studies, which I find a very strong practice. And of course, we are also communicating as much and as often as possible with the associated elementary school districts, because we realize that they really need to understand what we're trying to do in Common Core, and we need to understand where they're at with their Common Core curriculum work. Going to facilities, the second area of our plan. Just to brief the board, the second artificial surface at North is completed. The landscaping around the north and south facilities that we began early in the fall will be complete by the first week in December. The lone outlier is the fence around our parking lots. And as you are aware, we are working with the village to get a final decision on whether those fences can be 4 feet or 6 feet in height. Additionally, pardon me?
Is it appropriate for me
Sure,
to
go ahead. Sure.
say something? About the landscaping, and this goes, I guess it's maybe overarching master site plan in general. A lot of the landscaping that's being done, I know, is being done in the public right-of-way as well. And so the expectation is the village would be taking ownership of that in terms of maintenance, or is that something that we...
That's ours.
We have to take care of?
Legally, we could, but it wouldn't happen, so we expect to take care of it. I mean, it's typical, anything we have in the parkway, just like if most people cut their lawn.
house, right.
They figure anything that's in the parkway, you could leave it, but
It's not going to get taken care of.
practically, and there's not that much, but there is some, and it's our responsibility.
It is our
correct?
We
responsibility.
knew that going into it.
We did.
Yes.
Very good. That's all.
One of Mr. Schock's goals over the past year is to develop a master facility plan, and we have essentially split that into 2 components, one a master facility maintenance plan and one a capital improvement plan. And our intent is to make a report to the board about that at the December workshop. In terms of technology, the board is aware that we did extensive technology training during the first 2 institute days of the school year. We are continuing that training. We are also developing a survey to get information from our staff about the viability of the training and what additional training we need to provide. In terms of resources, personnel, staff development, and finances, I want to highlight that the new and improved second year of the mentoring program is up and running. A big innovation in that program is to increasingly put it online so that the proteges and mentors are recording their work online, and that the persons that are supervising the program can make sure that everyone is following along at the correct pace. We found that to be an issue before. We think this new online capability far enhances that. In terms of communications, we had a successful week ago tonight recognition program open house. We estimate between 45 and 50 community members attended. And that was a small recognition program compared to some that we anticipate for March and May. And we are hopeful that that will get a larger turnout for the open house component. But overall, we think that was a much improvement of over Bagels with the Board in terms of the number of people who were engaged with the board. So we will continue to follow through on that.
Going forward with that, what would administration's thoughts be on potentially adding, as something I guess we would talk about as a board too, but maybe adding the beginning of the year open houses to the events that we might be at? I know that some board members make a pretty good effort to be there anyhow, but it seems like that's a great opportunity maybe to talk to a captive audience once again, since we know so many are coming to the schools anyhow for their
Well, and I think
students.
even better now, because now we have visuals that go along with it, rather than just board members being in the hallway and shaking hands. And if the boards prompt conversation. They're specific as to various categories that, you know, that we have administrators and that there too. So it does prompt better conversation, I think. I think it'd be a great idea.
I've learned to give directions well. Me too, especially when I notice where the signs are.
Yeah.
And
I
now that we
think it's a
put
really good
signs in
idea.
our buildings, it is wonderful.
Well, that's certainly something to consider. There are years when the open
Full
houses
evening,
are
though.
both on the same night, so that would be a little bit
That would be-
problematic. Additionally, we have board members who are parents, and they like to, you know, that's an important role they play as well, but that's certainly something we can consider for next year. It is a captive audience that we could take advantage of.
Let me just a real quick comment about that captive audience. In my experience, having been a parent at those, there was no free time between classes.
Exactly.
So once my daughter's schedule started, and then at 9:30, I was exhausted. So, I mean, I think we should
Maybe
talk
hard-
about it.
That's
but-
true, too.
But that audience may be otherwise distracted. So that's,
Certainly.
It's a good point.
Fair enough.
Pleasantly distracted.
what?
Pleasantly
Pleasantly.
Oh, very pleasantly distracted, yes.
The effort, of course, is just to meet
But
to
that's
meet
not
people
what we're
where they
talking about
are.
now, so
Focused.
it's just something to think about, absolutely.
And in terms, in the seventh goal area, innovation adaptation, last year, the counseling and student support departments at both schools conducted a self-analysis. Using the results of that analysis, they have implemented improvements in their program. South High has done some work in terms of trying to improve their communications systems. They found that in the past, they had a lot of mailings, and so over the last several years, we've really reduced the number of paper mailings we do and moved to more of electronic format, but they found that what's lost in there have been some of their communications. And so they are changing some of the way they communicate now formally with the parents based on the feedback that they receive from their analysis. North High is looking at different gaps in their support service for students at the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. And they have different groups from their counseling department have started small groups of students to provide those support systems. That's certainly another presentation to the board we'd like to make later in the school year. So that being just a brief summary of some of the highlights, are there any questions about where we're at after 2 months on our goals?
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Getting a lot done, for sure.
Sure.
As you say, only 2 months into it.
I will say, is this format, it makes it very easy to understand what's being done, what progress is
Yes.
being made.
It does.
So the strategic plan format would make a wonderful seminar next year at the IASC conference.
I would agree with that.
Yes. I think we all think that, absolutely.
I would actually request for consideration that in the updates, because I'm assuming there's a project plan for each of these tasks, that we somehow indicate things that are, you know, just going along swimmingly, things that we've hit a barrier with,
that's
or things that we've hit a real snag. And in my experience, what I've seen done is just a little box and it's color-coded red, yellow, or green. So you don't even talk about green things. Only about yellow or red, and see if there's anything that can be done to help expedite or relieve whatever the issue is. Something to think about.
That's a good idea.
Other questions, comments, suggestions? Don't seeing any. We'll move on to 6C, South High Improvement Plan, South High School Improvement Plan. Donald, you pass that.
Okay. Under the rubric of NCLB, and given the fact that our district and our schools both receive Title I funds, when a school has not made adequate yearly progress for 2 consecutive years, we are obligated to prepare and approve a school improvement plan. Even though our schools are performing at a high level, neither of our schools has met AYP. And so North presented its plan last year, South presents its plan tonight. And Ms. Sicardi, I think you're making the presentation on behalf of South High.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. I don't know if this is on.
Okay, thank you. Tonight I'm here to talk about the South High Improvement Plan, which last month you heard from Dr. Miner about the District Improvement Plan, and it is based on a new model in Illinois. The new model is called Rising Star. It is a model that was piloted last year, and several schools participated. We did not. We were in the last year of a 2-year improvement plan. And there are many differences between the previous model that I've come every couple of years to talk to you about, and the current model. The previous model, we were required to target the areas in which we did not make adequate yearly progress, specifically reading and math. Rising Star is different. Rising Star is a continuous model. It requires us to continually be involved in school improvement. Essentially, how this works at the school level is that there are 104 indicators that we will assess over time. So far, we've assessed about 40 indicators, and you create a plan based upon those indicators. You need to rate those indicators based upon whether they are fully implemented, partially implemented, or not implemented at all. And we have a Rising Star team, which is a subcommittee of our school improvement team, that works on this along with me as the administrator in the building. So I shared with you a memo, Dr. Miner and I shared with you a memo that just basically lays out what Rising Star is all about. The fact that it's a continuous model, that it's based on curriculum, leadership, many different areas including community and family engagement, conditions for learning, professional development, and so on. And so we are at the point where we've assessed those and created a plan based upon that. So I'd like to reference at this time the first chart, titled the School Improvement Comparison to the DIP. Basically the chart that you should have that says South High School and District 99 Improvement Plan Alignment. In assessing the indicators, we picked the indicators to work on that fully align to the district strategic plan and corresponding to the DIP. Those indicators, as you can see, we selected 5. They fall into 3 areas. The first 2 involve student learning, student supports. And those supports can be for remedial level, middle level, or even the honor students. The second cluster, objectives 3 through 5, involve curriculum. Basically assessment, instruction, learning activities, objectives, and a document that aligns all of those. The middle column of that chart references how each one of those objectives aligns to the District 99 strategic plan, and then the far column aligns to the district improvement plan. So for example, the first 2 objectives that focus on learning supports and data collection relative to those supports. They specifically relate to our first 2 district improvement goals, which involve rigor, preparing students for college and careers. As you can see, they relate to multiple strategic plan goals as well. The next 3 objectives that we selected to work on focus on curriculum instruction, learning activities, and assessment. And they directly align to Common Core standards. You heard Dr. McDonald, in reviewing the strategic plan just a few minutes ago, talk about Common Core in mathematics, specifically English language arts. Those all align to those objectives in our strategic plan, and similarly to the district improvement plan, which focuses on rigor and creating a document that has all of those items included. The second chart that I provided is titled South High Improvement Plan. And this basically breaks down approximately 14 pages in the Rising Star system. So I tried to put it on one chart for you to see. Again, it has on the far left column the 5 objectives, the first 2 which deal with learning supports, the last 3 that deal with curriculum. And one of the things that we're required to do in Rising Star is to say, what does full implementation of that objective look like? And so the center column gives some indicators of what we would expect full implementation to look like. So for the first objective, which is about allocating resources for those learning supports, full implementation, one of our support programs next year will be AVID, so having a first class, and of course having resources to support the training of teachers and school personnel to teach that first class. Another area included in that first objective of course, is an increase, as Dr. McDonald just said with the strategic plan, in the number of students enrolled in honors and AP classes. The far right column, you spell out in Rising Star all of the tasks to date that you plan to complete to achieve that goal. And I say to date strategically. This is really a snapshot. It is a continuous model. We will go back in after we have completed various tasks, sort of take them off the list, and add new tasks as it becomes apparent they need to be completed. And the Rising Star meets to monitor this and continue the process. So you can see, obviously, the tasks that are associated with each. If you look at the second objective on this chart, it relates specifically to data analysis, and it's data analysis relative to those learning supports. It does not have to be the learning supports that we identified in our first objective, although it can be. So we identified other areas in which we plan to collect, analyze, and then make decisions based upon that data. Some areas that we selected relate to advanced placement test data, which we receive every year based upon the scores our students receive, but we don't have a way of tracking that in our student information system. So we are working, Dr. Miner's office and the buildings are working with Rod Rousseau to implement that within our system. So that information is at the teacher's hands, and so that information we can do some longitudinal data collection on relatively easily. In addition, we are working on a new reading test. All freshmen and sophomores in District 99 have taken the Performance Series test, and we are working on collecting that data, analyzing that data, and then making decisions programmatically. So that's just a couple of examples of how this chart works. You can see in the bottom three objectives that many of the course proposals that will come forward next month are there. Math 1, our new integrated Common Core Mathematics for grade 9. Foundations for Math 1, another course that you'll hear about next month. Our College Algebra 300, another course for the senior level of mathematics. And then finally, the work that's been done so far, which is cross-curricular. The two main departments, as Dr. McDonald said, are English and Social Studies, but we do have representation on that committee that's multidisciplinary. So we have health teachers, CTE teachers, world language, so on and so forth. So we are working on implementing next year for freshmen and sophomores ELA standards, English Language Arts, for grades 9 and 10, speaking and listening, across the entire curriculum. And you can see, obviously, the tasks that need to be completed for that to occur. So in summary, our school improvement plan is based on this new continuous model. The continuous model requires that we monitor it frequently based on a small subcommittee of our school improvement team, as well as reviewed by our larger school improvement team and our administrative team. Our administrative team will have updates. In fact, I just updated them this week. And also, various department chairs and administrators will be brought in what's called an open chair model to our Rising Star team, so that they can share what they know and learn about what the team is doing. In this process, we are required to report on several things. One of the things that we're required to report on is our mentoring program, which we shared information about the changes to our mentoring program. The other is we were required to have a school conduct peer review. Pete Tice from North High and Scott Kasich agreed to be our peer review school. So they reviewed the plan. In terms of comments and what they shared, basically they found one typo that I will change once the system is back up and live. It's been shut down for 5 days. But also made comments that it's very thorough, well done, that the Rising Star team looks like it's put a lot of time and energy into creating a plan that aligns well to the district's strategic plan, as well as our district improvement goals. So at this point, we're at the point where we have vetted it through various groups, and we will continue working on the plan.
Wow.
Any questions?
Questions?
It's pretty impressive.
Very thorough.
Yeah, very. I'd like to make just a comment for people that are maybe watching this on TV and want to follow along. These charts and all this information is available through our board docs, which can be accessed through our website, correct? So, that's all.
Well, I do have two comments. One, I'm very gratified to see linking the school improvement plan, which is a mandate imposed on us from the outside, with our strategic plan, so that we're not just doing extra work, but we're actually advancing our own internal strategic plan at the same time. And under No Child Left Behind, every school will be a failing school in a couple of years, because there won't be, because nobody will be at 100%.
100%.
Pretty
No
nearly
one's-
every school in Illinois last year.
Yeah.
Wasn't it
So-
95%?
So
Did it
the
make
idea
it?
of bringing this back to our own internal strategic plan is excellent, to do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it looks like great work. I'm looking forward to more.
I wanted to clarify, do I understand that some of the Common Core curriculum will start next year?
Yes, in the
math and-
English,
And then math and English, or just?
math and English. In math, we are starting the first course, assuming it's approved by the board, of course, called
right.
Math 1. It's an integrated model, and you'll obviously hear more about that next month. In English Language Arts, that's our multidisciplinary team. They are currently looking at speaking and listening standards for grades 9 and 10, determining where those are covered within the curriculum, identifying any gaps within the curriculum, and then obviously working on curriculum to meet those gaps.
Wow. Next year is going to
Anyone?
be exciting.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6D, the school calendar for next year. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. At this time of year, we begin the process of developing the calendar for the next school year. This is a process that we follow sort of a general format from year to year, with a couple of caveats and nuances. We do try to have graduation on a Friday night. A tradition in our community that when that does affect when we start the school year. We get direction from the Regional Office of Education about appropriate times to start and end and appropriate vacation times. I think that's very helpful because it would not do to have our spring break or holiday break at a different time than the elementary school districts. So to summarize where we're at this point, our plan is to begin the teacher calendar year on Monday, August 26th. The first day of school for students is Wednesday, August 29th. We will observe all the holidays unless we happen to have a snow day that year. We plan to observe all the holidays. There's a 10-day holiday break beginning at the end of the school day on Friday, December 20th and lasting through Friday, January 3rd. With school resuming on Monday, January 6th. We have moved the final examination schedule back to a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday format beginning January 13th through 15th. A 5-day spring break, March 31st through April 4th. County Institute Day is February 28th. Graduation is scheduled for Friday, June 6th, 2014. The first semester is 87 days on this calendar. The second semester is 89. We try to balance those as closely as possible. The 2-day difference is not a problem because in the second semester we have the Prairie State Achievement Exam. At least that's what we have at this point. It may change in the future, and that takes 2 instructional days for that purpose. So essentially they are balanced. There are a couple of new developments that I'd like to brief you about because we have not come to closure on how we're going to resolve them. New legislation states that the first and last day of the school year have to have at least 5 hours of instruction. Now, historically, our first day of school, we've had a half day for our upperclassmen, and then they leave, and we have a half day for our freshmen. So we actually have a longer school day for our teachers than we regularly would, but for our students, they are not there 5 hours, and so we're going to have to figure out a different way to code that, or we may have to choose not to do it that way anymore. So that'd be a shame because we like to have the freshmen there by themselves on that first day so they get to walk around without all the other kids and the traffic.
My son appreciated that.
Yeah, my daughter did too.
And then at the end of the semester, like other high schools, have final exams, and that does not end up being a 5-hour instructional day. So we're going to have to resolve those between now and next month, and we still have, I have shared this with the elementary school districts. We really do not have input from the Teachers Association. We were required to have that. But we're far enough along to present this as a draft tonight, understanding that we'll spend the next month getting all these details cleaned up.
Is there any sort of legislative relief from these two mandates?
No.
Or any sort of waiver
No.
because of the wonderful things we do with the time?
Because of all the wonderful things we do. Yeah.
I'm not, there are ways that we can keep that first day, but that may affect other things that we've typically done, so.
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
I do believe that it seems a very powerful thing to allow the freshmen to be here on their own the first day.
Yeah.
Because that is, in both buildings, we have large buildings,
Right.
Exactly.
and it takes time to find your way around, and the first day, a couple days of school are crowded enough already.
Yeah.
Well, we do a nice job, I think, with, it's brain cramp.
In or with pride?
No, well, at the beginning, just before school started at South.
Oh, Mad
we
Dash.
We had Mad Dash. Okay, so, and we get great participation in that, but you still have a number of students that are starting day one who weren't at Mad Dash, transferred in late, whatever.
North has a similar program
Right.
with the similar attendance.
State aid wise.
I just had one other comment. We're really going to be off on Pulaski Day?
I noticed
Cheer?
that too. Yeah.
Yes, unless it snows.
I had one other comment, too.
First time in years.
I also see that we don't have the late start dates
Yeah,
on
early
there.
dismiss, or the-
We don't have those on there
Late
yet.
start, yet, because we're still working out the
Right.
model
The issues.
of the day, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we can move on to 6E for new information requests.
District received 2 Freedom of Information requests in the last month.
Actually, Mark, I believe those are both from a prior year, so I think they were by mistake. Are those both?
Yeah, October 17th, because that was after the board meeting.
Of 11, no.
11?
Yeah, I think they were,
Oh, maybe I just.
I think they were from a prior calendar.
Oh, sorry.
So,
I thought I looked at those.
So we had
there's
none.
none, actually. It is so rare to have none. I think that's why it was.
Everybody's shocked.
Yeah.
Something here.
Right.
Okay,
Jill had
none.
caught that before the meeting, so, sorry.
We'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The chair invites a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Member Pavasich moves, so here a second.
While you were enclosed.
Second?
Member Beckman seconds. Roll call vote, please.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Julie Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, the motion passes. The consent agenda has been approved. Item 8, 8A, approval of 2012 tax levy. Dr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. White. At this time every year, the school board approves the tax levy to finance the school year beginning July 1st of the following year. And this is a process that the Controller's Office begins in the fall, and Mr. Stalen will make a report on that this evening.
All right, then we'll see if we can get this to go the way I... It's going to computer. I might need my techie here.
Mr. Techie.
I want computer, is that right? Was that my cue?
No, video.
Video, okay, there we go, I'm sorry. If it's video, then there we go. Thank you. Wrong button. He only told me that 4 times, so. Tax levy, this is probably one of the most important things we do to secure the stability of the district. 80% of our revenues, actually a little bit more than 80%, because typically it's been 80%, but the other revenue sources have been shrinking. So this becomes a larger part of our budget just by doing the math. But 80% or so of our revenue comes from property taxes. It's an double-edged thing in that it's tough on our taxpayers, but it's also provides fantastic stability to our school system that many schools in Illinois don't enjoy. And so you will have seen papers, and you're reading in other areas that districts are in dire straits, under tremendous stress, making reductions, and basically impairing their educational programs. We are able to maintain a stability because of our tax levy. And even with the limits of the tax cap, we've been able to sustain a balanced budget and operate the district pretty much in the way that we have for a long time. The request, so for the 2012 levy, very similar to last year's, and I think you've probably all seen this colorized grid here several times. The blue section on the left is what we actually know. We know that last year's actual assessed valuation was about $4.3 billion. Our assessed valuation almost hit $5 billion when that was in, I think it was in 2008, 2009, and it's been dropping. And it's having an impact. It's forcing our rate up, but basically because of the tax caps and the way that it works, there's an unlinking between what our assessed values are and what revenue we get from it. There's no longer a correlation. It used to be before tax caps, if our values went up by 5%, our revenue would go up 5% because there was a direct relationship. Tax caps unlinked that, and so now we're subject to whatever the tax cap limit is for a particular year. And the limit for the 2012 levy is 3.0%. Average has been 2.4% for the last 5 years, and roughly about the last 10 years, actually, about 2.4% as well. So this is actually, a good year,
Nice.
and it's a good thing. We have a lot of concerns ahead of us. Again, 80% of our revenue coming from property taxes. We know that the one revenue source that is the most questionable and has been shrinking is the state support. Rather than reducing, well, they're going to reduce our general state aid. It's projected to be prorated, which is very unusual, but they've been starting to prorate the state aid rather than lower the foundation level and just pay it 100% at a lower foundation level, which would have different impact to different districts because of the way the formula works. They're just running the same foundation level and just prorating it. And they expect it to be prorated, we just had an update from the State Board Thursday, between 80 and 84%. They also expect to prorate our regular ed transportation by about 50%. So some of our state sources are going to be impaired a little bit. And in addition to that, we talked about that briefly, or I talked about that briefly a little bit ago. We were hoping it's only the normal cost of the pension cost that's borne by the state will be shifted over to the schools. There's a lot more cost involved with our pensions that they, other than the normal cost, which is, that normal cost is about 7.8% of our certified staff salary. We're expecting that to be transitioned over to us as a new expense, hopefully over a 7 to 10 year period, and not all at once. We don't think schools outside this region, a suburban area that are more dependent on state aid, we don't think those schools would survive if they did it all at once. And so as long as they apply this pain equally across the state, we should be able to survive that. But that could be up to a $400,000 hit for us as well this year, in addition to the prorations that we're going to be seeing in the state aid. So we do feel we need to go to the full 3% on the tax cap that we're allowed. The section in the middle that's a protection provided by the levy request in the yellow, we really don't have a real good handle on our new construction. We've met with our assessors. They've indicated they expect the new construction in the district, and there is some new construction, new properties come out on the tax rolls, to come in closer to 0.4%. Our highest that we've ever had is 2.2%. In a better year, we averaged about 1.7, 1.8%. So you can see we're well below half of that. And our expectation, at least to provide protection for us, is if the worst case scenario is we don't levy enough to capture that new construction, new properties that's put on the tax rolls in terms of the long-term stability of the district. So we're providing enough of a request to cover that 0.8% easily. And then what expectation, though, is, again, what's over on the right-hand side in the green. We expect the assessed valuation to actually drop by 6.5% this year. Real market values in terms of selling prices of homes won't be dropping, and hasn't dropped that much, but there's a 3-year averaging effect. And so from 2008, when the property started dropping, 9, 10, and 11, it takes a while for that to work its way into our actual calculated assessed values. And so we think that application this year of that, another third of a down year in a 3-year weighted average system is going to get us to about a 6.5% drop in values. And I have another chart in a second that I'll talk about that. But we think that's going to change our assessed value by dropping it again. We think the new construction will probably be closer to 0.4, close to what it was last year. And we think that even though we're asking in this request today for $70.3 million, we'll have to cut roughly $1 million off of that when we do know our actual new construction values and our actual assessed values in April. And we've done this every year, so this is nothing new. It's just it's kind of a routine. Some districts, I just talked to a business manager this weekend. They make their extension 10% higher than the prior year, and always reduce it. And it's just always been 10%, and I guess it's just what their community has come to expect. But we do at least try and trim it down to a more realistic number than what we expect, and only have to reduce it, I think, by $1 million. I put a little box on this grid on the lower right-hand corner what that impact will be. The 3.4% is what we really expect to get in terms of real dollars. About 1.9 million of that would of a $2.3 million increase. $1.9 million would be the 3% of our extension, and about 400,000 would come from new properties and new construction. That's what we expect to have happen. The impact to a $300,000 home would be about $44 a year. And I understand that to people that are on with no jobs, and that's money, that's costly, but it would take a tremendous reduction in our levy to actually make any kind of dent in that $44 change. So we think it's reasonable. We wish it was nothing, or we wish it was very small, but that would be the impact. It would be, you know, and if you drive a van like my wife does, it's about 3/4 of a tank of gas, you know, but that's over the course of a year, and we do understand that impact. The next graph I'd like to show you is I started doing this last year just to make us all feel a little better. I don't know about our home values. If you look at the red line on the left, from 2000 to 2007, there really was a huge bubble. And for people that were watching their home values, over that period of time, from 2000 to 2007, they saw their values go from, if a $300,000 house went up to $515,000 in a period of 7 years. And it was a phenomenal increase, and many people were saying it's a bubble and it's unrealistic. For virtually all of us, though, in our lifetimes, we hadn't seen real estate values drop. And so this has been quite a shock to see them drop. But if that bubble didn't occur, and you can see it kind of peaked out there in 2008 and has been dropping, even if it goes down 8% this year, and the assessors tell us it'll be more like 6.5%. But even if it were to drop to 8%, the average growth from 2000 through 2012 would be about a 4% average growth. So there has been an incline in property values over time. It peaked out, and we're dropping, and we do see an end to that because the 3-year averaging method is starting to roll itself out. They think next year there could be another drop, but not as bad as 6%, and then we'll start to flatten out and then start to go back up again. And so even though 4% average growth isn't fantastic, at least it makes me feel better that I know that my house over time, because we're all in the same boat. The people that are really, really suffering are those that in 2008 refinanced and got a second mortgage on their houses, thinking that the properties were going to keep growing at that rate, and had a drop in value. And there's a significant number of individuals that are in that situation. But I just like to show you that graph to at least show you that it has been a bubble. It's not so much that we've been on a steady trend and all of a sudden it's dropped. It really took off from 2000 to 2008. And that's really it in a nutshell. Tonight we're going to be asking for an action item to approve the levy request with the expectation that it's actually the end of March, first couple days of April, we'll get our actual assessed valuation dollars. The county clerk requests that we respond to them within a 5-day period of time. So I'll take action to reduce that levy request, similar to what I have here on this chart here. We're taking approximately $1 million off of this request, and then I'll bring it back to the board, and usually at the April board meeting for approval of the allocation between funds of the actual extension amounts.
Mark, when you take that off, does that change what?
No, because
No.
the 3% is the cap amount, so even if we had no new construction, it would just mean that our total extension would only go up by 3% instead of 3.4. And the new construction is the only variable in this equation right now.
So just so I'm clear about this, in each of the prior years, once the tax cap was applied to the levy requests, all of them went down below what we'd approved prior fall.
Yes.
And that's been, so that we've consistently reduced the number we vote on in November when it comes to actually time to be applied in the spring. And at some point, you can show us each year how much it went down.
Right, that was the question I had, yeah.
And I'd like to, pardon me, I'd like to remind you that we've issued alternate revenue bonds that in February we'll be abating the debt service levy for that. We could, if we had to, levy that. If state aid was impaired enough, and actually they're starting to impair it, we could legally reduce that at some point, but it's not our intention to do that. We intend to abate those taxes and pay for those out of operations and build those into our operating budget. So we will be abating some debt service levies, but that won't take place until January or February.
Also, to help me just make sure I'm understanding this right, regardless of what levy request we approve this evening, it's going to be pared back to the 3% plus new construction. It could be 4.9, it could be 14.9, it could be 44.9.
Right.
But it'll be pared back to
Right.
3% plus new construction,
Right.
no matter what we vote on.
Okay.
But 4.9 is
Just protects our
yeah, it protects it.
taxing
But
ability.
I think it's also really important to note that if you don't do the tax levy, and we're talking about those alternate revenue bonds, so you're thinking $40 for a $300,000 house, and we are able to do that for your $40, we're able to abate those revenue bonds. And if we didn't do that and we weren't able to abate, we'd be paying more. I mean,
Right. Yeah, our total new dollars of 3% would again be about $1.9 million. We'll be abating something about $1.5 million. So in essence, we're not offsetting all of it, but offsetting what we would otherwise be doing if we didn't abate those bonds. And that was for a project we really didn't have much choice about. That was the South High School.
Absolutely.
Life safety work.
Absolutely.
No, that's right.
Now, part of the calculation of the 4.9 limit, this is what I'm thinking about this right now. You tell me if I have this right or not. It's an artifact of having to divide our budget into different funds. Would it be fair to say the 4.9 is some way the lowest number that gives you the assurance that no matter what happens, we can cover all the funds and catch all the new construction? I think I read that in the...
I mean, I could actually have cut it thinner. I could have probably cut it to 4 something, 4.2 in terms of the request and expected to reduce it. But because we don't know the assessed value, we don't really know there's appeals that could come into this. Our assessors are telling us they expect it to drop 6.5%, but if it were to drop at 9 or 10%, something that unexpected came up, I could actually hit an individual fund ceiling. If you look in there where it says individual rates are produced, a couple of the funds have separate ceilings, and that if the assessed valuation were to drop hard enough, our request would exceed that rate for that particular fund.
And
So that's
you.
why I do increase the levy a little bit more at the request stage, so that we have the flexibility to manage which individual funds we put the dollars without violating an individual fund rate. It'd be a lot easier if we knew what the assessed valuation actually was. We'd be done, and it would be right on the money. We would
you're
levy
forecasting
3.4, and we wouldn't have to do it this way. But again, that's why some districts go to 10%. They just inflate every fund so that they have total flexibility later on. I don't think we need to be that dramatic about it. I think we can keep it a little bit tighter.
But no matter what we vote on, it's going to be 3% plus new construction.
Right, unless we were to reduce the levy. I mean, I want to say that would, yeah, if we were contracted, it would be less than that, but then we would be putting ourselves at risk. We would certainly lower our revenue stream in spite of the fact that we know we have the pensions coming in. We also have some reductions in state funding.
But also, speaking to the point that Mrs. Boyle brought up, it's been my understanding consistently that our ability to do some of these alternate financing methods saves us interest and bonding costs and things like that. And an inability to do that, reducing $1 off of the levy could very well cost more than $1 in actual program benefits received by the taxpayers, because more money would have to go to bankers and lawyers and less money would go to buying things like gym floors and LED lights.
The worst case scenario, you're right. The worst case scenario would be that we get all of the state pension cost in 1 year, no longer have the operating dollars to do what we've been planning to do and pay off those alternate revenue bonds, and then we would have to go either reduce program by that same amount, which is an option that would have to be considered, or we would have to issue debt service extension bonds, which would be much longer term bonds at a much higher rate. And that's where I think we saved upwards of $10 million in interest over time by doing a short levy, short bond issuance and paying it out of operations.
Not to mention bond counsel fees.
Right. We saved quite a bit of money to do it that way. Right. A local bank would have a harder time buying longer bonds, but the shorter ones we were able to work through a local bank.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for bringing it up, because I mean, I have to say, I mean, I am, I'm a pretty conservative type of girl, and I really don't like taxes. I mean, nobody does. I don't, but when we are, a governing body that, can vote on, a tax levy or tax increases or anything like that. I mean, certainly you want to make sure that the taxpayer knows that you're taking really good care of their money, and that we're doing things actually that are in the long run are actually saving people money. I would love to never be able to, I'd love to be able to not have to do any kind of a tax levy. I'd be the first one that would jump on board. But when I look at what we're able to do, what is not going to be coming in from the state, what we can't be counting on, and then knowing that our educational institution and system is a huge selling point for our district and the people who are buying homes here, that's where the value comes in. That's where people are coming in. They're looking at what their schools are going to be able to offer them. And after looking at the data that our administration puts forward, and knowing where our administrative salaries, where our teachers fall, what our students are doing as far as ACTs, and what we're able to do on that amount, the amount of money, I think that we're being actually rather frugal with the taxpayers' dollars, and I think our money is very well spent, thanks in part to Mr. Stalin and what we collectively do as a board. And even though I think in essence all of us hate to raise any kind of a tax, I think in something like this, I think it's probably the right decision to do.
And I'll also say that I appreciate you trying to keep the levy request as low as possible, because with short attention spans in the public, certain people opportunistically will take advantage of that number to make unfounded attacks, when really we're talking 3%. It's not 4.9, but that's what people bandy about in the media, that it's 4.9, and it's not 4.9.
And right, and just to clarify for the record, the 3% is an aggregate to the district. It may not be that every individual's house will change by 3%, because if your neighbor goes out and gets an appeal and drops his assessed value lower than average, and yours drops the same as the average, yours won't. Your increase would be higher than 3%, and his would be lower. His would be maybe 2%. So I mean, it's an aggregate amount across the district. It's the only thing we can guarantee is the district only gets 3%. How it's allocated is an assessor's nightmare, quite honestly, but it's also their responsibility to allocate.
It's taken me quite a while several years to sort through this, because it's a very convoluted way of doing it.
It's nothing simple, but
but it all makes sense to me now. Anybody else want to jump in with any comments? Or yes, Mr. Matteo?
Yeah, I think it would be a fair question to ask, knowing that state aid has decreased, knowing that we have this pension situation coming our way, what other sources of revenue are we examining to help offset some of this to our taxpayers?
Well, we have pushed over the last couple of years Title I and some other federal sources. There is if you look at our profile as a district, we're not in as dire a strait as other districts. That, and most grants are need-based, and very few are just based on a type of grant where you would get it for a new initiative. And everybody's in trouble right now across the state. So We have looked at federal, and we've increased the federal dollars. We're also increasing our federal IDEA grants, although those always come with strings and new costs are involved with those. The only thing, and it's a small piece, that we've been going after is locally is actually issuing or buying warrants from other schools and trying to increase our interest income, which is really down from how it's 1/10 of what it's been historically, in about $260,000 to $300,000 a year of interest income. We're able to get 1% on some things. We are looking at other districts to buy a little bit longer short-term bond of other school districts. It's going to be very secure investments, but so we might be able to get a little bit better return over multiple times. So really, multiple years. So those are really the few items that we've been able to find out there to get. State money is they can't pay their basic bills, let alone get any new sources. So.
And I appreciate it. I think you've done some excellent work, not only this year, but in prior years. And would like to associate myself with Mrs. Boyle's comments about the work that you've done and the administration have done, given the parameters that have been set out. With that being said, I cannot support the levy because I think when we offer $44 from our taxing body, another $44 from 58, COD, fire, village council, when you have elderly neighbors and you have other people, that adds up, the $250. That is something that I don't think is very fair. And again, it's not a reflection on your work at all.
No.
But I think it's not fair to our taxpayers, and it's not fair because the system is broken. And I would like to see our district be a leader in fixing that problem and saying, you know what, this type of system is pernicious and it's not fair to all people involved. And especially because you have, people on fixed incomes that would love to help the next generation of students. And being a teacher, that's exactly, what I'm in the education business for. But just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should. And again, that's not a direct reflection upon you.
No,
I detest the system, and that's what my vote will be in favor of.
I'd like to add, though, that I think this district has been a leader. I totally agree. it's unfortunate that we have to do things the way we do. But we have a state leader in school finance on our staff. And that the IASBO has been a leader in trying to convince the legislature that there are better ways to do things. It's just that the legislature isn't listening much. But I just wanted to be sure that we all understand, that the public understands that we really do work hard. We work hard through LEND. We work hard through IASBO. We got to keep it up. We got to keep up the effort. That is true. And I would also reiterate that absolutely real estate, schools enhance real estate values as much as they can in this community. And I think it's responsible for us to keep up the quality of our schools and, in a way, keep up the values of our property. So I would support the levy.
Anybody else want to add anything?
I'll quickly just comment that looking at it from maybe an ultra simplistic point of view, if we're asking basically to keep up with inflation in the end, and everybody's costs go up every year, and counter to keeping up with that rate of inflation, find other places to save money, which would mean making cuts. And I think we've heard from our constituents time and time again how much they appreciate how good our schools are, what they do to not only in terms of educating our students, but protecting our home values, those investments. I certainly have clients who moved to Downers Grove just because of the schools. So I see this. I'm amazed at how we're able to basically maintain a line in terms of not really, I mean, certainly we're looking at an increase here in terms of dollars, but in terms of the effective use of those dollars, we're constantly getting more and more for those dollars every year without really asking. We're not going beyond the tax cap. We're living within these inflationary restrictions, and yet we're constantly being asked to do more, both from federal regulations, state regulations, but also our students and our community and our teachers. Everybody wants us to do more, with less. And I think from what I've seen in my brief tenure here on the board, is that we've been amazingly successful at that. And I certainly would not know where I would want to cut, what I would want to cut if we were to not levy this amount. So I'm supportive of what's being proposed, and I appreciate the work.
I just want to add one thing at the end, which is that my sense of our community is that there are differences of opinion about these issues.
Sure.
Therefore, it's of vital importance that all those points of view be heard and listened to, and that everybody have a seat at the table.
That's right.
Because you know, we cannot shout down those we disagree with. We just can't do that. That wouldn't be right. I would comment, though, one thing, that for elderly people on fixed incomes, there is a circuit breaker program available which freezes the tax levy, so that certainly if you're over 65, I think, and you're on a limited fixed income, and because I know I've noticed clients where they sell their parents' homes and the buyers are shocked at what the tax bill jumps to after the freeze goes off. But for many, many years, the taxes, so that those people are not paying higher taxes on their homes because the county has a program that freezes their tax levy. I think for the administration, what I say is, like I said, I suspect from our hearing that the levy will pass, but you need to keep in mind that we're going to be looking at every dollar because we have to do that to protect the taxpayers. So
Sure.
Unless somebody has something they want to add, I invite a motion to approve the tax levy.
So moved.
Member Beckman moves.
I'll second.
Member Davenport seconds. Any further discussion? Call the vote, please.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
No.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye. The motion passes. The tax levy's been approved. Okay, we move on now to 8B, approval of South High Improvement Plan.
Just had it.
An action item. McDonald, I think.
We recommend approval of the plan presented by Ms. Accardi in the earlier report.
Okay, we had extensive discussion. Any further comment before someone wishes to make a motion? Chair invites a motion.
So moved.
Member Davenport moves.
Second.
Member Kupka seconds. Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka? Aye. Keith Mattoon?
Aye.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye, that motion passes. That school improvement plan has been approved. Item 8C is an action on a personnel matter we discussed in closed session. The chair invites a motion consistent with the details presented on our board docs. I suggest in this case that they actually read the recommended action, whoever wishes to make the motion.
I'll make the motion to support the action on the personnel matter.
Okay, there's a motion to the Board of Education to issue notice to remedy the tenured teacher, okay, as provided on the agenda. Is there a second? Member Kupka seconds. With no discussion, call the vote, please.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
Aye.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye, that motion passes. That action's been approved. Item 8D, student discipline matter. Once again, the chair invites a motion. This is something we discussed in closed session.
So moved.
Member Pavasich moves to accept the report of the board hearing officer in the matter indicated on the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Beckman seconds. Without discussion, call the vote.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye. That motion passes. That action has been taken. Turning to item 9, old business, second reading. Dr. McDonald's report provides a brief summary of the various matters that are before us on second reading. I've not received any comment from any member of the board on these, so as a way to start discussion, I will move that the 5 policies indicated in item 9A be adopted at time of second reading. Ms. Kupka, was a second?
Aye, second.
Member Kupka seconds. Do we have any discussion? Anybody want to talk about this before we vote?
No
Going once?
changes since the first reading, right? That's what you just said?
Right. Dr. McDonald, do you think that we need to stay on the record on this before we vote?
No, I think these are pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. Give her a chance to talk, and at that point, we'll call that vote.
Bill White?
Aye.
Nancy Kupka? Aye. Keith Mattoon?
Aye.
Terry Pavasich?
Aye.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Okay, that's 7 ayes. Those policies have been adopted at second reading. We turn now to item 10, new business. There's a number of new policies here. I'm not going to go through them individually as before. I believe there was some discussion in the written materials, and everybody's free to contact myself, Member Kupko, or Dr. McDonald with any questions about any of these policies. Is there anything that any board member wishes to discuss at this time regarding any of the proposed first readings and new policies?
It just appears that these are pretty routine clarifications of policies.
Yeah, some of them are a little bit more. There's a few materials on a few of them, but basically it's IASB or it's cleaning stuff up.
And there is one new policy, 7.310,
Is that the new one?
the restrictions on publication.
Oh, yes, and yes.
Sorry.
Okay, there is no action to be taken on that. Going once, anyone want to talk any more about that? Going twice? Okay, so when we come back at our next meeting, we can have second reading, and feel free to bring any comments or corrections regarding it, suggestions about any of those policies. Now, item 11 is our second reception of visitors. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to us about anything that pertains to District 99 business? I think I know what you're going to talk about.
Evening, everybody. You all know me, basically.
Station name and address.
Sure. I'm John Gargiulo. I live at 838 Sheridan Place here in Downers Grove. Past few weeks, guys, I've been discussing with you the history and the status of our lacrosse program here at in Downers Grove. Been really talking to you more of our current state and just trying to paint a picture for you of where we are tonight. And I promise not to take up there's a lot of guys here, they're not all gonna talk, okay? But just wanted to just paint a picture of just kind of where we've been. So I've asked just a few of our many alumni just to come in and just say a few words about the program tonight. But before that, I have one of our current athletes that just wants to say a few words, and barring any exception, this should be the last time you hear from me tonight on this, so I'll just turn it over to him. If I don't talk to you again, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Hello, my name is Dylan Tyziak, and I'm here today to talk about lacrosse becoming an emerging sport in District 99. The appeal of lacrosse is to the wide diversity of all types of athletes. It's not like in basketball, where if you're tall, you'll be the dominant player, or like football, where you'll need to be 300 pounds to be a good lineman. In lacrosse, everyone has their own playing style you can admire. Some guys are small, fast, and agile, and others are big, fast, and can put a hit on someone. Honestly, the contact is what immediately drew me to the sport, because any sport where I can lay out a kid is a plus for me. But that's just me, and my name is Dylan Tyziak. I'm a junior at Downers Grove South High School. I have been playing the sport of lacrosse for 9 months now, and those 9 months I devoted part of every day preparing for the next season. That season being the season where I would finally be on the varsity squad, where I would be able to throw on the jersey with the Downers Grove on the front and the number 33 on the back. A season where I would make a change, take charge, and help my team win a conference championship. All those things are all now not happening, and all the hard work we put in as a team in the off season are basically for nothing. We are a legitimate team that will benefit the school. We have over 60 guys between both North and South. Along with this, every school in the West Suburban Silver Conference has a team except for 2 schools. Those schools being Downers Grove. So without signing this, we are not offering the same things other schools are offering to the students. Without signing it, District 99 is not letting either school, North or South, represent and compete against other schools in the sport of lacrosse. I hear that you guys are working hard to make us a sport, and I have trouble understanding something. Like, I get that there is a process that needs to take place before you can come to the conclusion of signing the emerging sports contract. But I know, and I know you guys know, that with every process, there's a way to either speed it up or slow it down. And it's based on who is in charge of that decision, which in this case is you guys, and the result is signing the agreement. Without signing the agreement, you are essentially taking our season away from us. Now, like, think about when you were in high school, if you ever played a sport, like, what was your favorite year of playing the sport? And most likely it was your senior year, like the most memorable sport. And like, most likely I'm right about it being your senior year. Now, why would you ever want to take away that season of the sport that someone loves, that many seniors will ever play? I just don't understand how someone could deny a person the right to play the sport that they love. It just doesn't make sense to me. Personally, I am in love with the sport. I didn't choose to be in love with it. It just happened. From the moment I picked up the stick, I instantly became addicted. I became addicted to the sport and to the team that I now call my family. I guarantee many other kids feel this way, and I know with not signing the agreement, the sport and our family is getting broken apart. I am one of those kids that cannot live with the sport of without the sport of lacrosse. Saying all this, I hope you guys can change your mind next year and go forth with signing the emergent sports agreement, because I, along with yourselves, both know that there's a faster way around the process than it is making it seem like. So I hope you guys can change your mind next year, because other schools are just going to move ahead of the Downers Grove schools and their sports departments if we do not sign this. The ball is initially in your court, and you guys made your decision, so thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Mike Monahan. I graduated about 2 years ago, a year and a half. I see some people I recognize. It's pretty awesome. I play lacrosse at the University of Missouri, and it's been probably one of the best experiences of my life. Like, playing for a university and being able to wear Mizzou or like any big university, small, D3, D2, it's probably been the best experience of my life. I have a twin brother, Nick Monahan, who also went to Downers South. He plays football at the University of Missouri as well. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to get to a bowl game this year, but next year, first year SEC. I talked to many guys on the football team, basketball team, baseball team. They're like, wow, lacrosse is such a cool sport. Like, I wish I could have played it in high school, but our high school didn't have a team. And I feel awful for those guys because they don't get to experience the amount of fun, brotherhood, camaraderie, like stories of great sports events. Like, they didn't get to experience that in high school or in college, not being able to play lacrosse. So I'm just here to ask that you grant the team to become a full sport here at Downers Grove South and Downers North, because it's been one of the greatest experiences. And like Dylan said earlier, you don't have to be 300 pounds. You don't have to be 6'7". You don't have to be a little guy to be a wrestler, because I also wrestled here. And honestly, lacrosse is a lot more fun than wrestling or football, because I played that here too. It's a lot easier. It's a lot more fun. And when I was a senior here, like Dylan said, one of my favorite moments wasn't in wrestling, it wasn't in football, maybe not being the mascot, because I was a mascot for a year, but it was definitely playing lacrosse and having a whole bunch, I would say about 300 people come out to our games and just being like, wow, that's the first time I ever saw it. Like, I didn't know, like, you guys were club and everything, and they really enjoyed it. And after that game, people kept coming and larger groups kept coming. And it's really an experience for everybody and in the school to say, like, yeah, we're that good team. We're that lacrosse team. Have you guys heard of us? Like, having kids come up like, hey, I heard you guys' lacrosse team's pretty good. So I'm just here to advocate for it. It's been some of the best memories of my life. Even in college, my favorite memory was coming home after we beat Kansas in a game of lacrosse. So I'm just here to say, if you guys could please sign the things that need to be signed and hurry up the process. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Nathan Jacob. I graduated from Downers Grove South 2010. I also played with Mike during his years at Downers Grove South. I'm now a junior at University of Iowa, and I play with Kevin, who's also here for the alumni. Lacrosse was definitely a big thing that got me through high school. Freshman year, I was on the Downers Grove South volleyball team, but obviously I was not tall enough to move on to the rest of the years. So I talked to the coach my sophomore year after I didn't make the volleyball team my sophomore year, and he said, go ahead, you don't even have to try out, you can just come and play lacrosse. And the minute I started playing, I just loved it, and it definitely helped me out. Even in college now, it helps me get through the week, like through tests and homework all week long. Like, I just am happy to have at least 2 practices a week just to play lacrosse. So I definitely agree with my teammates and coach that you guys should definitely move what you need to do to get lacrosse sport at Downers Grove South. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I am also a junior at the University of Iowa, and I also play on the team with Nathan. I still remember my freshman year coming in. That's when I picked up lacrosse. That there was probably 15 guys we were in the north-south lacrosse called back then. I still remember we had like barely enough guys to field a team, and then John took over and just ran with it, and we just kept getting more and more guys. And now I'll show up to their practices, and it's ridiculous how many guys they have for a high school team. And I just remember, when we could like barely field a team, and we had to forfeit a couple games because we didn't have enough guys. But now, just the numbers these guys have is ridiculous, and they even changed their name to Downers Grove Lacrosse, which is making steps towards the high school, like the high school level competition, which. I definitely think would be a great thing for Downers Grove. I just think it's a great sport for it keeps kids focused. Working out. I definitely think you guys should sign this and make Downers Grove South and North two high school level teams. Thanks.
That's it.
Okay, anybody else want to address us on any other subject? Okay, we'll close the second reception of visitors, move on to item 12, communications and announcements. On report?
We had our annual land breakfast at the annual conference in Chicago, attended by Dr. Kupka and myself and Superintendent McDonald. And it was a little bit cut short, so we could honor Mr. Stalen and his fine MC duties at the convention itself, which he did a splendid job and represented the district extremely well. Our next meeting will be next month, and we will have a report at that time.
So when do you predict the legislation will pass?
Which one would that be?
Any of them. Can you read Michael Madigan's mic? Okay, SACID report?
Not a detailed report. We are meeting next week, and I'll have a report after that.
Pavasich Foundation?
Well, we had a couple of fundraisers this month, and we are going to be having what we call the Pizza Wars in January, and we hope to have a lot of participation in that. I believe it's January 16th. Am I correct on that date?
Yes.
So mark that on your calendars. We'll have all both schools have entered pizza restaurants, and we're going to invite them and give a trophy. And at North, they're working on a trophy for the winner of the Pizza Wars. So.
Is the goal to make who makes the better pizza, or what?
Yes. Well, it's a vote.
Okay.
To the restaurant.
Pizza. So the kids will be voting, and it's a fundraiser. So we hope to see a lot of participation with that. And we're not going to be meeting in December, so we'll be back in January.
Okay, thank you. We have a workshop on December 3rd at 7 p.m. and we have a regular business meeting on December 17th. Anybody have anything they want to add or bring up before I invite a motion to adjourn? Yes. Anybody wish to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Member Pavasich moves.
Second.
Member Kupka seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.